Bridging the Gap with Technology for the adult learners at the Nature School at Camp Albemarle. The purpose of this presentation is to discuss the importance of leadership within an organization when it comes to implementing technology innovations. A leader has an obligation to address all types of adopters when they're introducing different technology. According to Rogers, the different adopters consist of the innovators. These are the adopters who already have complex technological knowledge and a willingness to accept uncertainty. They are, so to speak, the gatekeepers, bringing the innovation in from outside the system. Because of their status that is usually outside the social system, these are your risk takers. These are the people who are willing to try something new, even if it means failure or uncertainty of success. The next adopters are the early adopters. These are the role models whose adoption of innovations reduces uncertainty for others. Within the social system, they're the leaders. They're the ones that others look to. Then there's the early majority. These are deliberate adopters who are neither first nor last to adopt an innovation. They wait and they see how it's going to go with the early adopters and the innovators. They have strong interpersonal relationships in the social system. Then there's the late majority. They're skeptical about innovations, but their uncertainty can be reduced by their peers' adoption and economic necessity of innovations. And finally, there's the laggards. Their social system consists mainly of other laggards, and they will generally only adopt an innovation after they see success from others. When leading with technology changes, the innovators, early adopters, and early majority are integral to the success of implementing a technology change. The innovators, as outside-of-the-box thinkers, are open to risk and challenges, and the possible failure that comes along with trying something new. Their willingness to leap right into a change makes them ideal candidates to test out the new technology first. Like John the Baptist, they prepare the way with sometimes unconventional methods. They don't shy away from the attention focused on them because of their place in the social system. Following the innovators' lead, the early adopters would be next to implement technology change. The risk of public failure has been reduced, and the early adopters' success will highly influence the rest of the adopters. Like Simon Peter called to lead the church, the early adopter isn't afraid to get out in front either, with the ability to leverage their leadership skills to advance the cause. Sachs, Jarvie, and Helen highlight the importance of innovators and early adopters' role in leading with technology changes, saying that innovators and early adopters can be used to predict which ideas are potentially appealing to mass market customers. The innovators and early adopters should be the first to try out the technology changes. Then there's the early majority. As the early majority deliberately examine the success of the early adopters, they too will begin to adopt the technology innovation, preparing the way for the late majority. Like many of Jesus' disciples and followers, the early majority has influence because of their interpersonal relationships. While not outright leaders, their adoption trickles down through the social system. And then we have the skeptics, the late majority. They have a healthy dose of skepticism towards new technology. They need the chance to see its usefulness before they're pressured to adopt it. These are not the ones you want to try out a new innovation, but rather they need to be given the chance to sit back and watch their peers' adoption, along with some lightly applied pressure. In Luke 24, verses 1 through 12, the disciples reject the news that Jesus is risen. Peter, our early adopter when it came to initially following Jesus, must go to the tomb and see for himself before he believes. In this case, he is just like the late majority. The laggards are the hardest ones to convince that a technology innovation is necessary. They are going to drag their feet and resist, and it is best to just factor in their need for plenty of time and plenty of evidence before they move from skeptic to adopter. Jaharmar and al., in a study that examines the continuance of usage with late adopters, state that, in the case of late adopters, firms should invest in the development of radical innovations and in the promotion of both the radicalness and high system quality of their digital innovations. In this case, radical means drastically different and superior than current options. These two things will motivate laggards when all else fails. Perhaps the most famous laggard when it comes to the resurrection is Thomas. His famous words, "Unless I see in his hands the imprint of nails, and put my finger into the place of the nails, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." Jesus met this laggard right where he needed to be met, providing that very proof without condemnation. As leaders in a system, we have an obligation to model Christ in our approach. We all have a role in whatever system we find ourselves in, and that system is usually made up of every type of adopter. Whatever we would label ourselves when it comes to adopting new technology innovations, we must understand the other's roles as well. In general, I'd classify myself as an early adopter. I have significant leadership capital that I can work to the advantage of an innovation. Yet I also have an obligation to follow Christ's example and use my position of leadership wisely. Listening to the skepticism of the late majority and the laggards can temper my sometimes runaway enthusiasm with needed wisdom and remind me that the adoption of a technology innovation should be because it is truly useful and meaningful, not just the latest and greatest.